If you've been saved, you've been promised heaven will be your home one day. Oh, listen, because of that promise, we have a reason to rejoice. I asked this question this morning: have you stepped through the door of freedom? Or are you still living in the jail of sin? The jail of Satan's attacks, the jail of this world. You can enjoy freedom this morning. I want to read 2 verses. I'll give you a story and we'll be done. John 8:32 says, "And ye shall know the truth. The truth shall make you free." He says in verse 36 of that same chapter, "The Son therefore shall make you free. Ye shall be free indeed." I don't know about you this morning, but I'm glad that we can enjoy the freedom that comes from God. I remember reading about a little girl named Annie. In 1876, while she was 10 years of age, she was sent to live at a home in Massachusetts. Annie's mother had died, her father deserted her, her aunt and uncle felt that she was too difficult to handle. She had a bad disposition, a violent temper, stemming in part from eyes that were affected with a painful disease, and she had been put in a poorhouse. Nobody wanted this little girl. She was such a wild one at times, they'd have to tie her down to her bed. But there was another little inmate that lived there named Maggie who cared for Annie. Maggie talked to her, she fed her, even though at times Annie would throw her food down and she would curse and she would get mad, and with every ounce of her being she would rebel. Maggie, a Christian, was out of her convictions determined that she was going to help this girl. She was determined that she was going to share the love of Christ, even though this little girl was dirty and unkept and spiteful and an unloving little girl. She kept sharing Christ. And slowly, Annie began to realize she wasn't the only one suffering there. She began to realize she wasn't the only one to be abandoned. Maggie had been abandoned just like her. She began to listen, and gradually Annie began to respond. Maggie told her about the Lord and shared Christ, and it made a difference in her life, as it always does. She also told her about a school for the blind, and Annie began to beg to be sent there, and finally consent was given, and she went to the Perkins Institute. After a series of operations, she was able to receive some of her sight back, and at the age of 20, she graduated from school. She began to share with those at Perkins how she wanted to work with blind and difficult children just as she had been. And so when she graduated, it was set up. They found a little girl 7 years old in Alabama who was blind and deaf from the age of 2. Annie Sullivan went to Alabama to unlock the door of Helen Keller's dark prison and to set her free. I asked this question this morning: what has you enslaved? What has you in bondage this morning? Can I say Jesus can set you free? Won't you step through the door of freedom this morning? Won't you walk through the door this morning and be free from your sin and your guilt and your shame and the pain of wasted years? Don't waste another moment. There's a door of freedom today. And the Lord has it, and He's inviting you. And you're here this morning, you're not saved. He is the door. You can find salvation only through Him. You're here this morning, you're enslaved by sin. You're enslaved by habits. You say, I've tried everything, I've done everything, and I just can't seem to get over it. Listen, won't you come to Christ? He can help you. He can help you overcome the strongholds in your life. By the way, until you're determined to do something about them, they're going to continue to grow stronger. They're going to continue to enslave you to the point you may get to a place where you can't return. Will you walk through the door of freedom as Christ has gave away? Lord, we thank you.